A leak out of the Supreme Court revealed that Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned, leading many people to ask what could be next. At the top of this, I'll just say, this video is not me breaking down abortion as a topic generally. I think with the news of Roe v. Wade, everyone's views are out there, everyone's screaming about them. I don't really think there's more valuable commentary that I could add right now. So instead, I don't want to talk just about that news. I want to talk about what that news could mean moving forward and what ripple effects it might have. So if you happen to live under a rock and you haven't heard about any of this, the super short summary of this is Justice Alito had a draft opinion that revealed Roe v. Wade was planning to be overturned, and that was leaked to the public. Now, a leak in the Supreme Court is super uncommon and unprecedented. And then it happening on this issue, Roe v. Wade being overturned, makes it just one of the biggest moments around the Supreme Court in probably US history. It's also uncommon that the Supreme Court reverses decisions it made previously. It obviously has happened in the past, but the idea is to go against what they call precedent, you have to have a really, really good reason. And so in this case, the fact that this ruling would be going against the precedent that Roe v. Wade set, a lot of people are wondering, is this going to be more than just one decision? It's going to be a tsunami of decisions that overturn previous precedents. Now, Justice Alito, who wrote this draft opinion, did specifically say in the opinion that this is not to be perceived as a first move of multiple moves to overturn past rulings. Reading from his draft opinion, to ensure that our decision is not misunderstood or mischaracterized, we emphasize that our decision concerns the constitutional right to abortion and no other right. Nothing in this opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion. When I initially read that, again, setting aside the decision that he's talking about abortion, that's a whole thing, but I'm saying when thinking about, okay, other decisions, what does this mean for them? That's a really good thing to hear. He's saying this is just about abortion, nothing else. What makes it hard to believe that that's the case is in a lot of these conservative justices' confirmation hearings, when they were asked about Roe v. Wade, they said it was very important precedent and it should be respected and alluded heavily to the fact that they wouldn't overturn it. Now, you guys know I'm as honest as possible. I've heard some left-wing shows say they said they weren't going to overturn. They didn't say that. The wording they used did give them room to do this. It did heavily imply they weren't going to overturn Roe v. Wade, but they did not explicitly say that they wouldn't. They just said, you know, this is important precedent. It shouldn't be disrespected, stuff like that. But they didn't say I would never overturn that. So just in the spirit of honesty, that's the case. Regardless, I do understand why people are having a hard time believing Alito in this case, but I do think it's a good sign that he's getting ahead of it, saying we are not going after other things, because at least he would have to be pretty explicitly lying in this opinion for them to go on and overturn other past decisions. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm just saying it's a very good sign that he put this in the document. One of the people warning, though, that this could be step one of multiple steps of overturning past decisions is actually a Supreme Court justice herself, Justice Sotomayor, pretty much laying out that the reasoning that Alito is using in this opinion could be used in a lot of these past decisions, including gay marriage, contraception. She said, quote, "I'm not trying to argue that we should overturn those cases. I just think you're dissimulating when you say that any ruling here wouldn't have an effect on those," which I think is also very valid. You shouldn't say, hey, this doesn't affect other stuff if the reasoning that you're putting into the Supreme Court record could be used to overturn other things. Well, you can't promise that won't have an effect, because regardless of if it's you or not, a future conservative justice could say, hey, also precedent is Alito's writing that shows we could use this justification to overturn other things. Okay, so with that being said, where do I stand on this? I'm gonna be honest, I have a really hard time believing that Justice Alito is setting up a situation where they could go through and overturn a bunch of these high-profile past cases. I believe that abortion holds a special place in their mind. And so the benefit that they get from all of this outrage, the overturning of precedent, is that they get a success in one of the most important issues in their mind. Whereas a lot of these other issues, yeah, sure, maybe they're not pro-gay marriage, maybe they're not pro-contraceptives under Obamacare, whatever. I don't believe that they care about those issues enough to go through and hit all of those as well. The journey to overturning Roe v. Wade has been a very long one for the pro-life movement, working nonstop pretty much since it got ruled on to get enough justices who were pro-life to overturn Roe v. Wade. I don't see that kind of movement on these other issues. And I know people like to act like, oh, these crazy justices now, they don't care about anything, they're just trying to use their authority to go crazy, blah, blah, blah. I understand where you're coming from. You have to understand though, the justices don't see it that way. Someone like Alito actually does care about the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. And while he thinks he's justified in overturning Roe v. Wade, he's also gonna weigh in his head, how much does this delegitimize this body? And this decision is gonna do a lot of that. But going through multiple will just pretty much make the Supreme Court a joke. And I know some people are gonna argue with me on this. Totally fine. Let me know what you think. But you would be surprised how much a lot of these people, including these justices, worry about the perception of their institution. And so for him, he's weighing in his head, do I care about this issue enough to take the damage that I'm going to take by overturning it? And in the case of Roe v. Wade, this has been a long plan working towards it. So yes, that does pass that test. Whereas the other issues, I just don't think they do. I would be shocked, but I don't know. I've been shocked before. I was shocked about this. And I definitely think Justice Sotomayor's reasoning of saying, hey, regardless of if you don't want to take this and apply it to a bunch of other rulings, you are setting up a situation where your justification could be used on past rulings like gay marriage. And the specific reasoning that Justice Alito is using and Justice Sotomayor is referencing is Alito laid out in this draft opinion. Abortion is never found in the Constitution. Therefore, it should be left to the states, blah, 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 blah. So for a lot of things like same-sex marriage, that could be applied. And so I think the most likely scenario is Alito is not planning on going through what Sotomayor called a tsunami and overturning a bunch of these past rulings that conservatives disagree with. I have a hard time believing that's Alito's plan. It could be, but I have a hard time believing it. Instead, I do see a situation where unless Democrats are in office at the right times and get more Supreme Court appointments, possibly once Alito's gone or there's even more conservatives on the court, they could use that reasoning to overturn other stuff, but it won't necessarily happen right here, rapid fire one after another with kind of the planning of Alito. I think Alito genuinely wants to say, we're just ruling on abortion. Yeah, this sort of applies to other stuff, but we're just doing it on abortion. And then that reasoning could be used later with other Supreme Court justices, including maybe a few of the ones who are currently on the court. So as of now, I think while obviously this is just a massive historical story with massive repercussions, as far as other issues go, because that is a big conversation right now, I think we're safe. Scary part is though, each time you overturn those precedents, you make a current ruling weaker. And in an ideal world, the Supreme Court would rule on something and it would be settled. But when you set up a legal landscape where things can always pull this way and that way, it's not good news.